Hi, everyone. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you all here. The final day at the Milken Global Conference. Who's here for the first time to the conference? First time. Wow, a lot of first timers. It's an amazing event, isn't it? You get to bump into the biggest change makers on the planet, thought leaders. And today, we're actually repeating a panel from last year. The topic, at least, is the same. The people on the panel are completely different. And from what we can see, if you look at the actual Milken conference site, this was the most watched panel last year online. And we hope to double the traffic this year. Because the topic is pretty powerful. It's all about inventing the impossible. My name is Ken Rakowski. I do a radio show, syndicated radio show, all around entrepreneurship. And we look at what's going on how people could actually create businesses and turn an idea into something that could be a billion-dollar business, which would seem to be impossible, but it happens so often now, and it does. If you look at a company like WhatsApp that has 59 employees and gets bought for $19 billion, it just blows your mind. So we talk about that on the show. Today what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the whole concept of impossible, but the idea of where impossible is. So I appreciate you spending some time. Turn off your cell phones. I'll introduce the panel in a moment. Actually, I'm going to tell you about them real quick. So right next to me is Akon. Akon, of course, award-winning artist, producer. I like to use the term speed to cool. Like, what is their cool? His cool factor is he's in the Guinness Book of World Records for selling the most ringtones, over 1 billion ringtones. Akon. Right. Next to Akon is Alon Lee. Alon Lee is one of the best storytellers, or he helps people still tell great stories. He's created one of the first interactive books, which we'll talk about. Trent Reznor, one of the top singers in the world, has used him to create storylines. He is right now helping Microsoft out on their Xbox side, creating new story and narratives on gaming platforms. So Alon Lee, thank you very much. Next to Alon is Ralph Simon. Ralph Simon, super easy speed to cool. His company is called Mobilium Global, but his speed to cool is he is the father of the ringtone. He actually created the ringtone. He is the dad to all the noises we hear. So thank you very much. And then Sasha Strauss. Sasha is a professor at 2 of the top universities here in Los Angeles. He helped Adobe create the Adobe suites. And on top of it, he mandates in his company that everybody in the company, including himself, give at least 10% of their time to nonprofit organizations. So I'm very happy to have Sasha Strauss join us. This is our panel. We're going to talk about the idea of impossibilities. What I'd like to do is just kind of start with the whole idea of impossibilities. And I am going to start by pressing a simple button. Okay, let's go to the first slide. There we go. Word impossible, very simple. Not able to occur, exist, or be done. And I love this idea because if we start looking at the idea of impossible, if we go back to Leonardo da Vinci, this is right here from 1485. 1485, all these flying machines that Leonardo da Vinci crafted, and people would say back then it would be impossible. Now, if you accelerate just 300 years in the future, the first flight was actually on a hot air balloon. 300 years later, again, we looked at 300 years for the word impossible to become reality. If we move forward, I want you to go to this magazine. I'm not sure if anybody remembers Bob Guccione, the founder of Penthouse, actually created a very interesting science magazine that lasted almost 20 years called Omni. This is Omni's cover in April of 1994. And what I want to do is I want to go back to 1994, which maybe several of you haven't even been born yet. But the idea in 1994 was what would be deemed impossible that we do today. For example, back in 1994, having your entire music collection on one device would be impossible. Of course, the iPad changed all that. Another complete impossibility would be the ability to make phone calls for free around the planet. 20 years ago would have been impossible. Of course, we do this all the time with Skype. Another impossibility is having almost every video in the world available to you at the touch of your fingers. I know this is commonplace for us today, but 20 years ago, they would have said that was impossible. It's reality. The idea of just wireless internet, again, it's commonplace for us, again, deemed impossible 20 years ago. What affects us here in Los Angeles in a big way is the impossibility of doing a movie from your living room. And this is happening right now with all the tools. And by the way, you can do some of these tools now, not just Final Cut Pro, but tools that are completely free that sit on the web, use the cloud. You can edit a full feature movie for free. they would have said we were crazy 20 years ago. Let's just go up now to now. This is within the last 5 years. If we went back to exactly 5 years ago, 2009, and I would say certain things that were going to happen in 2014, you would have said, that's crazy, that's impossible. So let me just talk about one real quick, and this is the X Prize. This is the Google Lunar X Prize. Right now, we have 19 teams that are competing to land a probe on the moon. On the moon. It's all taking place over the next couple of months right now. And when they land on the moon, they will compete to go back and forth, look at the surface, transmit pictures back and forth. This is at a commercial level. This is a non-government competition that's happening right now. That would have been impossible. People would just laugh at us. How about this? There is an app out right now that allows you to rent drones in the area you live, just to rent it by the hour, to maybe take selfies of yourself as it circles around, or to scout traffic in front of you to see where the speed traps are. You could rent drones today. How about another one? The idea of printing our own tissue and organs. We're seeing this happen right now, from ears to skin. Eventually, we'll see kidneys and heart. We'll actually have our own organs being printed as we move forward. This is happening. Another impossibility. This is going to blow your mind, this one. Steve Ballmer is using an iPhone. Blows my mind, okay? This is a tweet that he's recently made, and it's evident that he is tweeting from an iPhone. Okay, just another impossibility. Wow. And the last impossibility is actually, I'm not sure if he's here. Is Jack here? This kid right here is an impossibility that I hope we see more of. Jack has created a test at the age of 15 years old that tests for pancreatic cancer, and when you're tested, you have almost 100% chance of living. The current test right now is about $800, and when you are found to have pancreatic cancer, when this test proves it that you have it, you generally have about a 30% chance of life. That's an $800 test. Jack, at the age of 15, has made the test only 3 cents. An impossibility. I looked at this kid yesterday, and I looked at him and I go, you're going to save my life. You will, and I'm really looking at somebody that will save our lives. This is an impossibility. And the last impossibility, I really love it. If you read the headline on this, it says, what was impossible 60 years ago and dangerous 40 years ago and difficult 20 years ago has become no big deal. And that's same-sex relationships in an open place. An impossibility just 60 years ago is commonplace today. So don't just look at technology and science and space, but just the way we live together. That's the idea of what impossibilities are. So it's only impossible until someone has done it. And today what we're going to do is we're going to go through our panel and talk about the idea of impossibilities. And I'm really, really excited. Our first speaker is Mr. Elan Lee. Elan?
Hey, guys. There we go. The mic's on. So as Ken said, I've been a professional storyteller all my life. And I was thinking really hard about this notion of what does it mean to invent the impossible and bring it to life. And I've done I've helped with some of the best-selling video games of all time. I've done huge scavenger hunts, things like racing 1 million people around the world, and the first one to cross the finish line, we flew them into space. So we've done like really, really big things. But I thought today what might be fun is to talk about 2 examples of inventing the impossible: a book and a t-shirt. And what could that possibly mean? We'll start with a book. What does it mean to invent an impossible book? This is Kathy's book up here. Can I borrow the remote real quick? Thanks. This is Kathy's book. Published this a few years ago, and the notion was, can we merge a book with a video game? What lies right in between those 2 objects? And so we did Kathy's book. And what this was it was the journal of an 18-year-old girl. You start by opening the book, and everything she describes in this book is real, written from her point of view. So for example, she says, I'm really pissed off at my boyfriend. I never want to speak to that jerk again. I'm going to go home and tear up his picture. Turn the page of the book, and his actual torn up picture falls out of the book. That step into reality. You can take those pieces, put them back together. Suddenly you get to look at a picture of Kathy's boyfriend. That's pretty cool too. You flip it over, and you can see his phone number is written on the back. You can call his phone number. You can listen to his incoming voicemail. If you're really smart, figure out his password. Listen to all the extra mails. suddenly you are living in the same world as this book, right? Something that would have been impossible earlier. Every email you find, every website, all of this stuff is real. These are all things you can visit. One of the great ways we tested out whether or not we have actually created an impossible object here, are people living in the same world, was for Kathy, in order for this character to be real, we had to, of course, give her some social media presence. We had to give her a Facebook page. What 18-year-old girl is going to be real if she doesn't have a Facebook page? So we gave her a Facebook page. To create a Facebook page, you have to list out the birth date of the person. Well, she's a fictional character. She has no birth date. So we had to invent one. And amazingly, on her invented birthday, a message appeared on her wall saying, "Happy birthday." Right? This is a real person wishing happy birthday to a fictional character. Fictional characters don't have birthdays, but it was really cool. And what was even cooler is a few minutes later, she got another one. And there we go. And I'm sure you could figure out where this is going. By the end of the day, her page was flooded with these happy birthday messages from real people reaching out to a fictional character. And this only happens because of this impossibility, because these players live, these readers live in the same world as a fictional character. Never happened before, right? Nobody writes to Luke Skywalker saying, "Hey dude, sorry about your hand," right? You live in these different worlds until today, suddenly this stuff becomes possible. So that was a really, really fun example. It was a New York Times bestseller, an international bestseller. There's been 2 sequels. There's a movie coming out. Like, it was a really big deal and really fun because it introduced us to a new world of storytelling in this way that was not previously possible. The next example I want to give you guys real quickly is a t-shirt. I'm going to tell you a quick story. When George W. Bush was elected for his 2nd term, a lot of my friends were really upset. And this isn't a story about political preference or political leanings, just that a lot of my friends were really upset. And I would always ask them, "Why are you so upset? Like, who did you vote for?" And the answer was always the same: "Well, I didn't vote because it doesn't matter." And I got really pissed off at that, as a lot of people did. And so I did what anyone would do. I started a clothing company. And the way this clothing company worked was we printed out really, really cool shirts, stuff that we would be proud to wear in public. Really cool, kind of a street kind of skater mentality, really fun designs. But here's the trick. Every one of these shirts had embedded inside of it a secret code or hidden message somewhere. And you had to figure out what that secret of your clothing was. And the way you would do it is sometimes you had to fold your shirt in a certain way, or sometimes you had to get it wet or warm or cold. We used like thermal inks and infrared inks and glow-in-the-dark inks and all this crazy stuff to embed these secrets in your clothing. And if you could figure out what your shirt said, you would take your discovered code and you'd put it up on our website, and a movie would start playing. Little 2-minute clip. But we made a lot of these movies. We made one for every single shirt in the line. And they all fit together like a puzzle, like mini episodes of a TV show. Right? And you watch this story unfold around you, and it's this murder mystery and this woman on the run from the law. It's a crime she didn't commit, and only you can save her. You're knee-deep in this murder mystery that's been told through your clothing. And what's even better is if you want to know what happens next, awesome, go buy another shirt. So now I said this was about the fact that my friends weren't voting. So how did this work? The story that people figured out was actually the story about a band. And these are the members of the band up on the screen. There's Jeff on lead guitar and Adam the bassist, etc. But as people discovered this murder and the story that unfolded about this band with this really, really strong message, and they were being oppressed by their evil record label that didn't want their message to get out, what people kind of discovered was that beat by beat in this story, it was actually a metaphor for the story of the Founding Fathers and how the United States of America was created. Jeff was actually Thomas Jefferson. Adam was actually John Adams. The murder was Alexander Hamilton. And people learned US history. And it was this band they were really passionate for. They were downloading the music. They were going to concerts. But really, they were learning about American history. And they started this incredible thing. We never overtly told them that this was a history lesson. They figured it out. And they started canvassing their neighborhoods. And they started signing up for Rock the Vote parties. And one by one, they went out and started taking action. And for the next election, there was, for my demographic, there was the largest turnout in the history of the United States. And I like to take 100% full credit for that. Thanks very much.
Come on, Lee. Ralph Simon.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you here are screenagers?
There you go.
Only one. Well, you all look at your phones, your TVs, and your tablets. So you're looking at screens, you're screenagers. I'm going to ask you two questions. Inventing the impossible. Why didn't the trillion-dollar mobile money revolution start in the US? The US starts so much. Silicon Valley spawns so much. And secondly, why is mobile money and mobile health such important game changers? Well, to ask where mobile money started, you'd have to go to the cradle of civilization. And where is that? Right here in Africa. Look at that phone. Phones are driving things in Africa. 800 million phones, 1 billion people. But why is it that mobile money started nearly 10 years ago in Africa? The reason was very simple. There were 3 banks in Kenya that found out with one telco that you could take minutes and make minutes negotiable currency. It was called M-Pesa, Mobile Pesa. Pesa is Swahili for money. And just to show you the kind of people that were the first to use mobile money, they weren't from Beverly Hills, they weren't from Wall Street, they were, yes, they were Maasai from the north of Kenya. Look at those gentlemen. Most of the time they are herding sheep and cattle, but these fellows were actually using mobile money way before anyone in America was doing it. Why do you think that was? Well, it was because somebody from a company called Vodafone, Safaricom in Kenya, together with the World Bank, came up with this idea, impossible at the time, of having money being translated into mobile. And in fact, just to give you an idea, this is what was the come on to people to sign up with M-Pesa. People are now paying for medical services, for college education, for high school education, textbooks, food, a Coca-Cola, all using their phones. You can get some kind of idea just to see how rudimentary this was at the time. And this is what has now fueled the trillion-dollar mobile money business in America. But just to give you an idea, hands-free was something that was also very, very advanced in Kenya. Here's an example of someone using hands-free, and he is waiting for some information about health. There's an AIDS test that is being submitted to him on his mobile phone that might look silly to us here in Los Angeles and especially at Milken, but believe you me, this gentleman is getting his messaging and his money and paying for his goods for his kids on his phone. So let's have a look here. Mobile payments in Africa, just have a look. 68%, 50%, 29%. Very important. Rest of the world, 11%. In America, it is less than 11%. Growing fast with mobile wallets, but less than 11%. Isn't it extraordinary that Africa should be leading America to such a great degree? Because someone said this might be impossible, but in Africa, everything is possible. I'm African, he's African, everything is possible. Okay, so look at this. It's not chump change, the mobile money revolution. 28 countries, more mobile money agents. Look at Starbucks. How many of you pay for Starbucks with your mobile phone? A lot of you. Square, the company that creates the payment mechanism for Starbucks, now valued over $5 billion. That's a lot of money. And just look, by 2018, nearly a third of the people on the planet will be using their phones for money. Now, how do we move from money to medicine? Well, we look at medicine and mobile health as very important, and I'm just going to show you a few examples of what was previously impossible with mobile health and how mobile and health and money are combining together to give you an incredibly virtuous circle that will keep you healthy, that will keep you loved by your family, because you'll be around maybe until you're 110 years old. How many of you would like to be living to 110 and still look as good looking as Ken Rakowski? A lot of you would be, but I'd show you just a few examples to close up. Here we go. Anyone know who that is getting his mobile medical treatment? Anyone recognize who that is? Famous, wonderful, incredible man. That's the Arch. That's Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Desmond is now running something called the Global eHealth Foundation, really pioneering a whole new way of developing mobile health, not only in Africa, but around the world. The Archbishop is one of the elders, an incredible man who believes that mobile health and mobile medicine and mobile treatment is the way to go. Here's another one, interesting. This is now the first Pan-African mobile health delivery network in Africa, kind of like WebMD, but in Africa, free to consumers and helping the World Health Organization bring data analytics at a very local level at community health centers and clinics. How about this? you can now check diabetes with a mobile phone. We'll take a picture of your eyeball, and your eyeball will then, on the picture on your phone, give you a laboratory quality test to tell whether you have either juvenile diabetes or diabetes. It costs probably around 3 cents to get that done. Take a picture, it gets sent to a diagnostic center, might not be in your village, but just look at that. This is now being done every single day, and also done a lot in the United States, of course. And here's another one. You would be able to check your insides, your mobile phone placed against your stomach or your chest, giving you feedback as to what your vital signs are, maybe looking at some way that your doctor, distance, maybe you might be here in LA, but your doctor's in Cleveland, Ohio, or Moose Droppings, Idaho, and they can check to see how you are and what you are doing. Here's another one. Let's have a look. This is an interesting blood test, and believe it or not, there is now a very, very important AIDS test to check your CD4 ratio, which is a very key ratio to treat or not treat people with AIDS. And this little sample takes a prick of your blood. It then takes a photograph of your blood on a tiny little device. It costs about 5 cents. The previous treatment for the same kind of test cost $30 and would take 5 weeks. This takes 22 minutes. It's now being done all over Africa, and it's something that is going to completely revolutionize the diagnosis of HIV/AIDS plus other serious conditions. Blood analysis done on your mobile phone. You take a picture of the blood on the testing strip, and that strip is then sent by text message or email, and you get a result instantly. And then here's one that is something that for me is one of the most exciting things that you can see in mobile health. A company in Northern California came up with a pill that you swallow. It's 0.5 millimeter big. It's made of vegetable material, kind of like when did any one of you here ever get a battery to light up using a potato? Yes. Well, this is a similar kind of thing. You swallow the pill activates with your gastric juices in your stomach. It communicates with the patch that you put on your arm, and the patch communicates with your mobile phone so that the mobile phone gets to know what's going on inside your body. Talk about the inner workings of the inner space, but it also sends by text message to your doctor, caregiver, or hospital what's going on inside. So ladies and gentlemen, I ask you this. If you look at these examples, is impossible possible, or is impossible just a delay in waiting for things to happen? Mobile health and mobile money, essential bedfellows in a major global revolution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Sasha Strauss.
Ralph, can I have the remote? Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with all of you. I am in love with the impossible. I don't create the impossible. My concern is I'm at this conference and I'm hearing about the impossible at every session, and we're all in love with it. I mean, we're fluttering around the hallways, ignited by what we've experienced. But I have a concern, which is that we can't create this change if people don't understand it. We have to communicate it. We have to enable workforces. We have to get our donorship to understand these changes that we're trying to create. Otherwise, we can't create the impossible. So I've been traveling a lot. I've been on about 5 airplanes a week for the last 7 weeks, so all I've had time to do is doodle. So you're getting doodles. I want to just help you conceptualize the circumstances our consumers are in the midst of. This is, sorry, these are people, and they're sitting in front of what was called a wireless during FDR's presidency. And he used to give speeches with State of the Union addresses, like there would be a room of people like you. He would speak, and then someone would transcribe and then pass the message off to a horse, I don't know. Okay, and then he's like, well, wait a minute, how do I reach as many American citizens as possible? Is there a way to contact them? And his aides were like, well, Mr. President, there's this thing called the wireless, and like 5% of American households have it, and the grandmother and the baby and the neighbor, they all sit around for a couple hours and just focus on that one piece of technology. So that's how we got the State of the Union address now, and in fact, now we use YouTube, just to give you a sense of the scale of the broadcast, right? So my concern is, at this point, there was a lot of information, but grandma and baby sat around and consumed it. I was at Lego headquarters, and they showed me a piece of research they're doing on the buyer versus the play kid, and they're both consumers, but they're different mentalities. And they showed me what the average American household was experiencing at about 6:30 p.m. Okay, remember, this had one device. This is the average American household, and smile and wave if this represents your life at home, right? There are at least 2 televisions on. And they're not broadcasting the same content. They're completely unrelated pieces of content. There are 3 tablets. Those 3 tablets sometimes are related to what's on television, but maybe something completely independent. There are laptops open. They're used for scheduling meetings tomorrow or whatever the functional necessity might be. And we're talking about a family of 5. There's like a middle-aged kid, and then there's some 2 smaller kids. There's 6 or 7 conversations going on simultaneously amongst 20 devices. Do you, citizens of the universe, have the capacity to consume that much contact? No, you do not, right? So the question we have to ask ourselves is ultimately, if we are going to talk, we're going to take these impossible ideas and the institutions that are enabling them. If we're going to create this change, we have to respect that our audience is not just sitting there waiting to hear from us. They are defensive, like when you and I walked through the airport a couple days ago, and there's someone trying to sell us credit cards, and we're like, no! Stop talking to me. Or we're sitting in the airplane seat and there's just commercials just running one after another as we're sitting there. And we're just appalled by this intrusion, right? All citizens are appalled by the intrusion. So I ask you, dear change agents, how are you going to break through to our hearts and minds if you aren't clear with your message? If you aren't thinking about who we are and how we live our lives and conceptualizing the answer in our terms? And I want to show you how global this impact has become. One of the things I like to talk about in class, and my students whine about it all the time, we're talking about executive MBAs, top business schools, and they're whining about stuff because I gave them an assignment. I wanted them to map a customer journey from start to finish, from never heard of your institution before, to going to events, to learning, to applying, to submitting, to financing, to recruiting, the whole gambit. And I asked them to do it on Pinterest. They went apeshit. I mean, they were like, what? This is appalling. I'm never going to do this in real life. By the time they were done, it didn't matter if they were commanders in the military or CEOs of the most important companies. All of them acknowledged that these tools are changing our lives. They're changing our lives so much that you can resist them if you want. But if I took a poll 10 years ago and asked you, how many of you are going to have email 24 hours a day? You're going to wake up and you're going to be like, where's my fucking email? Are you going to push yourself to that? This is an era of such disruption. I was on a speaking tour in Central America, and my policy as an American is go into the cities. Don't just stay at the hotel. Put on some punk band T-shirt and Converse and walk for as many hours as possible into the universe. Well, in Panama, I ended up at this fish market. I don't eat lobster. I barely speak English. I don't speak Spanish. And I'm standing in front of this guy. And I'm emoting, I'm looking at him and he's looking at me. And he turns to my translator and he tells him about his business. He's got a dinghy where he goes out to the ocean and he throws his cages over and then collects lobsters and whatever, brings them back. And then I didn't say anything to the guy and bam, he hits me with this Facebook and Twitter handle. And I'm like, what do you want me, what is it? Translator, ask him what he does with the Twitter thing. And the translator looks at me like I'm an idiot and looks at him like, sorry, dude, I got to ask you this. What do you use the Twitter for? And the guy says, well, how else am I supposed to tell my customers about my latest catch? What other device do you suggest that I use that can help people understand what I have available for them right now so they can build their menus at their restaurant or plan their family's meals for the day, right? All right, so my suggestion to all of you is that we used to say that the pen is mightier than the sword. Yes? If you orated and created content that you could probably change the world far more than any weapon. I agree, but I'm going to upgrade it to not the pen is mightier than the sword, but the click is mightier than the bomb, right? The Middle East has 10 civil wars going on simultaneously. The US military, the most powerful military institution in history, couldn't create the change that human voice could. Yeah, new normal. Okay, this is a new era in the history of communication. I don't care how magical your ideas are. If the masses cannot understand it and communicate it, we will not accomplish what we dream. So I want to leave you with one final concept, which is that in our youths, in your youth, you remembered that there were the religions, and there were the universities, and the sports teams, and their leaders, right? You remember these people, and you aligned yourself with them. In fact, they were your archetypes. They governed the choices you made. You related to them as beings. Fine, but in this new era, where anyone, any corporation, government, rebel force can have the same broadcast that our government officials or our press can have, then we must all recognize as leaders that this is a new era in communication and the situation has been reset. We're all forced to consider that in the new normal, our broadcasts are now equal to anyone who chooses to talk. So if we want our ideas to succeed, let us consider the audience of the day. Thank you so much.
By the way, that was Sasha's entire workout for the day too, right? Let's give it a Sasha Strauss, thank you very much.
An honor, Ken, an honor.
Hey, Con?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Testing. After that, I feel I got to stand up too.
You look so much better at it too, you know? It's crazy. It hurts.
Woo! My man Sasha. So ultimately, the impossible is obviously very possible. In the life and where we stand today, we think about things that we just say, okay, how do I get it done, or where can I get it done? As you know, the way the electronic, I call it the electronic bomb because it just blew up in our face overnight. You know, it's funny because my sister was picking my dad up from the airport yesterday, and her phone went dead. She's not familiar with LA. Oh my God, Dad, my phone just died. The GPS is gone. My dad said, use your brain. And she was like, okay. And he's so right because, believe it or not, the brain itself is your GPS to life. When you look at how you think and how we move forward, we always have to think outside the box, and then we have to think within our box to see how does that create the opportunities for how everything moves forward. So ultimately, we're always moving, but then we're always afraid of change. We just, as humans, it's a natural human instinct. We love what we're used to, and we're afraid to try something new because we're afraid to fail, right? So if you're afraid to fail, how do you expect to win, and how will you take that win? Okay, cool. I've won. I'm a game player. I like to play the game, and I like to win. So if I'm playing you at a game, I'm going to win, and I'm going to rest and enjoy that win for a minute. Most guys be like, no, play me again. Give me a shot back at it. I'm like, no, let me enjoy this win for a minute, right? So if we take that concept of how we think in life and we move that towards innovation and motivate ourselves to go outside of what hasn't been done before and face failure head on, you could be surprised in life how much things can be accomplished. Because majority of people that's been here, that's invented and created the technology that we see today and created the opportunities that we can utilize now to move things and make it a lot easier and, you know, invite us to a point where now we can literally be lazy. I remember when I used to grow up, we had to do everything. I couldn't change the channel without having to get up off the couch to literally go change the channel. Now I could just sit back and change the channel, you know? So ultimately, anything that we don't have to put a lot of energy into is what attracts us. And in a way, it holds us down, but in another way, it also motivates us because we love that comfortable lifestyle. We want to live comfortably. We don't want to have to make anything around us extremely hard or extremely difficult. We want everything to just naturally ease up. So we move towards the technology because technology does exactly that. It makes everything around you extremely easy. And then it makes everything around you very accessible. And accessibility is actually the main key. Because if you don't have access to whatever it is, you can't create anything around it. So what this technology does in just life, whether it be online, whether it be mobile, which I'm a huge fan of mobile. I think mobile is tomorrow's history. Future rather, period. And that's just my way of thinking. I could be wrong, but I seriously doubt it. Because as you can see, as you know, my godfather here, Ralph, because of him, I was able to sell 1 billion, ringtones. You know, of course, the technology was created, but then outside thinking of how we market gave it the extra fuel to figure out how to crack that code to where now people understand what that is. How does it affect the everyday listener? Why is it that 8 seconds of a song is more impactful than 3.5 minutes of the actual song? Because it wasn't a fact of the experience of the song, it was the experience of the alert. It was a cool factor. When you can combine the cool factor with whatever everything else is, it just actually works out better. So if you're getting the basic singular cell phone tone, and then you come with smack that all on the floor, smack that. Of course I want to smack that ringtone, right? Because it makes you cool. You know, so the cool factor is definitely something that you don't shy away from, because even the technology itself, as it's created, you want to know that you're going to be cool standing next to it, or you're going to be cool driving it, or you're going to be cool just having the access to whatever that technology is. Even with these cell phones, there's a billion cell phones out there. But you want to go to the cell phone that looks the best, that match your wardrobe, that actually looks cute, or you know, just flawless at the end of the day. So the design of everything flows in it, however you look at it. So when you think of all the variables that come together from the way we think, everything has to flow, whether it's the look of it, whether it's the capabilities of it, or more than anything, how does it advance me and how does it advance my life? You know, so ultimately, the impossible is really just a thought outside of your normal thinking. And then how does that thought become reality? Or is it possible that reality can even accommodate that thought? And most likely, it can. Some things we just haven't thought of yet. Most things we have thought of yet, but we just don't know how to put those pieces together to make that thought become reality. So ultimately, I look at my past and how I came up and where I am today, and I would never have thought that I'd be sitting at the Milken Conference speaking to you guys about what can be done or what cannot be done, or what the impossibilities are, what the possibilities are. In no way. I've never seen myself as a public speaker, but as time goes on, I notice that I'm speaking to the public often, so guess what? Whether I like it or not, that becomes a possibility in my eyes, you know? So ultimately, as we sit here on the closing of the whole panel, I think at the end of the day, if there's anyone in here that understands what possible is, just understand that impossible is nothing but an I am away. Did you guys get that? You did? All right, thank you.
So the idea of the word impossible, obviously we went very vague, as opposed to, we're not done, by the way. Is it like the end of church and you just got to get out right away, or parking? The word impossible, we went in multiple ways. We went from technology to health to life to creativity. But let's really go down to the level is this. Has the word impossible changed by generations? Meaning, Ralph, you know, we look at the older generation and the way they look at the word impossible, and now the millennial. Is there a difference in the word impossible to them?
I think it's speeded up quite a lot when you think of Edison and how many iterations he had before the electric light bulb actually became what is used effectively today, same technology. 2,000 times he tried, something along those lines. I think the time continuum has become much shorter, where people's expectation, together with the time and technology, means that the expectation is things can be done quicker. It's like, for example, if you getting a new mobile phone, for example, your expectation is it's not going to break down. It'll last you for 13 months and then you'll change it. But I think that the time has telescoped, should I say, narrowed in a much greater way.
Sasha?
Not only do I agree, but also we're quicker to say no, because we have so much technology and information that could say, well, that idea is not going to work, right? And so what we've done is we've stymied the thinking of our millennials, because every time they come up with an idea, we're the first to tell them no for these 7 reasons. They don't even have the permission to ideate on those levels. So my takeaway from this is, if we give them that permission, we allow them to come up with 7 to 10 ideas before we dare judge, we will change the way that they think about the impossible.
But I mean, you gotta understand too, this generation is fearless. Like, I don't take no. I don't care who tells me no. I'm gonna show you why your no is not valid in my eyes. So ultimately, I've noticed that the generation today and the generation before us, things did move slower, but that's only because we have the instruments and a lot of the access to what can create whatever that new ID or device is today. Because ultimately, when Edison was alive, those avenues and, you know, things that we have today to our access, they didn't have then.
Absolutely.
So that, you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think you couple that with the amazing distribution possible, right? Like, I think people have always been having incredible ideas, today more so than ever, but today what's awesome is you have an incredible idea, something that was previously impossible. You can get it in front of people in minutes or days, and that opens up everything, because then the best ideas start to propagate out there, and that's unheard of.
Let's talk about the idea of crowdsourcing, not funding first, but crowdsourcing. I mean, obviously we've seen wars and governments toppled because of crowdsourcing. In the Arab Spring, in most respects, is because of what happened with Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. We sourced the crowds. How do you see that playing in the role of impossibility? Sasha?
Well, I'll tell you that at our global clients, they seem to think that crowdsourcing means we don't have a solution, so let's ask everybody. And that demeans their intellectual capabilities. It demeans the talent they already have in play. So when I talk about crowdsourcing, I don't want it to be an idea creation venue. I want to think about it as a place where you are permitted to create. Like, crowdsourcing says, we don't have an answer, so you come up with it. We come up with an answer, and we can use the crowd to validate, try, edit, revise, complement. If we just say to them, we have no answers, and therefore we're going to leech them from you, then who are we as the innovators really?
So are you a fan of crowdsourcing?
I am a fan of
utilize it properly. Right?
I'm a fan of crowdsourcing, but I have not met a CEO in the last 2 months who's like, we're going to crowdsource this and that and all of these things you're going to see. We're going to get millions of ideas and we're going to take the best of them. Well, what does that do to the 99,999 other great ideas that just didn't work with your business plan, right? So crowdsourcing is a delicate dance when you're asking for ideas.
I agree, but I think in much respects, it also creates an opportunity for thoughts outside of your own to flourish. I think when you look at from a crowdsourcing standpoint, there's a lot of people that feel shut out. There's a lot of people that feel their ideas will never ever go anywhere. So what that does, it also gives them a voice and motivates them to actually propel those ideas and those inventions. So even ultimately, like I might have crowdsourced, just hypothetical, you for one particular idea, but then you came with something that completely was left field from what I was thinking and created something maybe way more powerful than what I crowdsourced you for in the first place.
But I love and respect you as a creator, and so forth. I'm willed to participate in your idea pool. But how many organizations and governments and nonprofits can ask the universe for the big answers? I mean, at this conference, everyone is asking their constituents for the big answers. We're eventually going to run out of the right to ask our constituents for the answers. And so crowdsourcing has a lifeline unless we use it as a validation environment, not just an idea creation pool.
That's powerful. Okay.
We did, I've got a really cool quick story about that. We were working on this game a few years ago, and millions of people were playing this game in real time, all over the world. They were playing this game on a series of websites. And one day we did a test. We called a random payphone on the West Coast, and we told the players, we're going to call this payphone. They went out, one player answered the phone, and we said, listen, we need you guys to mobilize. We're going to call a payphone in New York in 2 hours. Pick a password right now. And the guy said, I don't know. He said asparagus. And we said, great. We're going to call a payphone, this payphone in New York in 2 hours. The guy who answers that payphone has to tell us that password you just made up. The guy on the phone freaked out. He hung up. He ran and ran and ran. We called the thing in New York. Some random person answered it, and he didn't know the password. And we said, OK, it's now time to get serious about this. Now we want to see you actually create. We're going to now pick another password. And he said porcelain. We said, now we're going to call a random payphone somewhere in the world. We're not even going to tell you where, in 30 seconds. And they need to know that password. And the challenge was build a network, build a mobile unit, get everyone out onto the streets fast. You got 30 seconds. And they built the Twitter channels, and they built the Pinterest page, and they had a Facebook page, and they built an IRC channel, and they got people on the streets. And we called a random phone number in 30 seconds. Immediately, porcelain, he knew it. It was crazy, right? Like, when you get the audience going, when they realize the power that they have to create and to invent and to ultimately change the world and realize how powerful they are, everything changes.
This is what makes that impossible possible.
Absolutely.
Something as crazy as that. Ralph?
Well, there's another key element that makes the impossible possible, and that is contextual relevance. For example, when we spoke about mobile money starting essentially in Africa, there was a local need that needed to be satisfied with local conditions. That sometimes spawns the ideation of these things. I mean, here with Akon, what is really amazing is the most popular Western artist in India, 1.3 billion people, is not Beyonce or Michael Jackson, late Michael Jackson. It's Akon. Why? Because he took the trouble to record in Hindi, the dominant Indian language, which was then featured in a major movie with the Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise combined of Indian movies, Shah Rukh Khan, and he became a massive, massive contextually relevant person for India. Think of inventions along those lines This has happened with medical invention. This has happened with the new kinds of genetic testing. And you're finding now that things happening in the emerging worlds are now starting to double back and impact in the United States. And the collaboration and the new kind of cohesion between the old world, the new world, and the modern world, coupled with modern communications technologies, is accelerating and reinforcing the whole question of overcoming impossibility.
I want to talk about the word boundaries, because I think since our boundaries have been dropped in most respects, the word impossible is, you're seeing it less. For example, the term, the shared economy. When we say something like Airbnb, you're actually renting out your apartment or condo to somebody else. You're getting in somebody else's car in Uber. You're hiring a complete stranger to do something on TaskRabbit for you. It's a shared economy, a very interesting concept now. Our boundaries are changing, which is making this term impossible become possible even more, because we're becoming a community. Sasha?
Well, I think that we can do this now because we have public-facing identities. We have Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, which says, listen, I have some equity in the social market. People have heard from me before. Here's photos of me being in this place and that place. And if you notice, if you've ever tried to qualify for Airbnbs, you actually have to link to a public-facing profile before the renter, the tenant manager will give you permission to enter the property. That's why we're willing to crowdsource and bring together in this shared economy drivers and cars and all these institutional solutions, because we all know that you have a reputation now, driver, service provider, and if you don't serve me the way that the contract suggests, I now have the power of voice, and that's what gives us access to the shared economy.
It's powerful.
That's the eBay, part of the eBay model as well, isn't it, Ken?
The ranking side, right?
Absolutely. Gamification of all of our accomplishments.
Well, but gamification, I would say, is now in another space, because we're gamifying cancer, finding ways to treat cancer.
Oh, and there's nothing, gamification, just because it came from gaming, it is not a derogatory thing.
No, not whatsoever. I'm saying let's grow it up a little more.
No, I mean, it's the reward system. It's simply the modern reward system. It's what it is we all need. We want stars on our name, don't we, on the wall? We want stars with little check marks? Okay, great. Digital version of this in any environment, your healthcare environment, your music consumption environment, gaming included.
And Alon, let's go with this. On the gamification side, with big data out there in cities and municipalities, allowing the open source of this data, we could gamify things like traffic, population, urban issues. All this could be solved with all the big data gamified, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I've played games on my iPhone that try to help cure cancer, that by steering a spaceship through an actual map of DNA, start to map out potential cancerous areas, and then upload to a server. And literally by playing this game, you're helping save someone's life.
So I'm trying to go through a gamut of different things that have changed the planet. Aecon, as a brand, you have, I believe, 54 million likes, maybe it's more today, on Facebook. You're as big as Starbucks on the social media. No, seriously, that's where you're at. And which, by the way, most people don't know this, he manages his own social media. That blows my mind, right? But as you use Instagram and Twitter and Facebook as an artist, which brands should be using the same way you do, how does that change an artist's opportunity to get into the system and change the system from what a label or a traditional distribution model would go?
Well, I mean, ultimately, you got to make it social. People got to feel like they're having fun. And it goes right back to the gaming concept. I mean, anytime you can add something that's enjoyable while a change is being made, people are a lot more quick to want to be a part of what that is. No one wants a bad day. Everyone wants to feel good about what they're doing and have fun while doing it. And me, ultimately, it was all about engaging. The unity concept was always my main concept when it came to me building myself and also understanding how the Aecon brand works. So it was always about partnerships and features. So if I had a record and I wanted to gain other territories, basically I would just find territories where I would weaken, and I would collaborate with the biggest artists in that area to be able to expose myself to that audience. And that system always, it was a system that I adapted everywhere around the world, and it actually worked. So it came right back to the unity concept, but in the mix of all that, we made it look fun. We made it look like this is something that you need to be a part of. We gave it that cool factor, and that more than anything, people seen the fact that we were enjoying ourselves. And everyone that was attached to what I was doing or attached to anything the brand was doing, they could also see them uplift themselves as well too.
Movements, brands, government. Sasha, how important is it to have a social platform?
You know, it's amazing that we still talk about this, right? That we're still like asking ourselves, is it going to go away? Or, you know, people ask me all the time, is Facebook going to be? And I'm like, I don't care if it's Facebook or anything else. Are we going to stop talking like this?
Nope.
No. So thus, we must, as the innovators of the future, recognize that there is a communication channel that brings all the parties together at play. We gamify the environment so they get public rewards and want to stay participating in our agendas.
Absolutely.
This is the new normal. We don't get to discuss whether we like it or not. Let's operate in an environment which we can map and plan for, and we have all of the most powerful communication tools in history. Remember, the most powerful weapon in history at our fingertips.
I've got a good example, actually. Many of you have played Angry Birds on your phones.
Sure.
How many of you know that Finland, 5.3 million people, is generally recognized globally as having the best education system in the world? Is there Finn there?
No.
Okay. Well, there's a Finnish there? No, not there. But anyway, so what is happening now is Angry Birds have taken education, putting together gamification using Angry Birds characters, and education with specialists from Finland to develop new educational curricula to help make education fun on a national basis.
Last question real quick. We've talked about from gamification, social media, context, branding, storytelling. How are we going to pay for this in the future? I mean, Ralph, you brought up the whole idea of a mobile currency. How about this whole cryptocurrency direction, something that goes above a government and allows people to exchange back and forth? Where do you see this? Akon, do you see some type of cryptocurrency, some digital currency beyond?
Well, absolutely. I mean, the digital currency now is going to be the future. In a minute, as you can see now, I can't remember last time I actually carried a wad of dollars in my pocket. I don't even have a dollar bill in my pocket now. You know, and when you look at how everything is moving towards the mobile standpoint, you have all these mobile financial systems moving, you know, really, and ultimate, oh, no, I don't, is that 100? You know, and they have all these beautiful, I mean, new innovative ideas, but there's one that particularly stands out by the name of Bitcoin. And where that's going is going to change the world from a money transactional standpoint. So definitely look forward to that.
You're looking into Bitcoin, not just for Africa, for...
No, not just for Africa, but for everywhere.
Wow.
Everywhere.
Sasha, Ralph, Elon, and Akon, thanks a lot for being part of this panel. Thank you very much, everyone. We appreciate your time. Have a nice time at the conference.